Hello. Hi, welcome. Good afternoon. My name is Emily Grabelski, and I'm co-chair of JFNA's Disability Advocacy Committee, and I want to welcome you here today. I'm delighted to welcome you to our workshop today called Disability Support and Inclusion in the Age of Social Distancing. I'm especially proud today that there's captioning for all of our GA programs and breakout groups. JFNA has made sure that everybody is able to participate in our GA programming and workshops. One of the aspects of Judaism that I love is that the Torah instructs us that each and every person is of equal and infinite value. We are taught that we are all created in the image of God and must treat each other with dignity, respect, and honor. The Torah also specifically addresses disability. For instance, we are admonished not to put a stumbling block before the blind. And one of our leading prophets, Moshe, also had a disability. We learn early in Judaism's history that even someone who is slow of speech, as Moses is described, can achieve the highest levels, indeed to become one of our most important prophets in our faith. Today, we are going to learn about how our federations and partners are helping individuals with disabilities do just that, achieve the highest levels, and become our community's next leaders. The session today is very timely, as data indicates that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, such as autism and cerebral palsy, are more than 4 times as likely to contract COVID-19 than people without disabilities. Also, people with disabilities are 2 times more likely to die from this virus. And sadly, there is a higher likelihood of COVID-related death for people who are African American or Latino. I know personally the challenges of the pandemic. I know that they go beyond health concerns. My son Sam has autism, and the pandemic has altered his daily routine. And this is something that has affected how he thrives. Other people with disabilities are also facing significant mental health challenges, and this includes social isolation. However, what gives me hope is the amazing work being done by federations and their partner agencies. These things make a difference in people's lives, especially people with disabilities and their families every day. Disability inclusion is the core of our federation system, and its exemplary programs and services make those in our network sought after leaders in the field of disability. In addition to programs directly run by our federations, our network includes 13 group homes and 140 Jewish family service agencies. And these provide comprehensive support to people with disabilities, like education, job training, and counseling services. And I know this is evident in my home community of South Palm Beach as well. JFNA is a public policy leader in the realm of disability, healthcare, and mental health. We prioritize government as a partner in supporting our agencies in their work to promote the health and well-being for those with disabilities. We have a great program for you today. First, we're going to hear from Dr. Timothy Shriver, chairman of the Special Olympics International. Then my Disability Committee co-chair, Dr. Matt Keller, will share with us a video featuring an incredible client story from one of the agencies that we have. We will then dive into a discussion with representatives from agencies that are providing exemplary services to people with disabilities during this pandemic. It will be moderated by one of our Disability Advocacy Committee members, Michelle Hirsch. I am confident that you are going to come away this afternoon with a feeling of being moved and being hopeful. And I hope there are many ideas that you hear today that you can take back to your local communities. I'm now so pleased to introduce you to our first speaker. Dr. Tim Shriver has devoted his life to improving the lives of people with disabilities and changing the way society views those who are disabled. He is the chairman of the Special Olympics International Board of Directors, and together with over 5 million Special Olympics athletes in more than 190 countries, it promotes health, education, and a more unified world through the joy of sport. I know firsthand how amazing Special Olympics is, as my son Sam was once one of their Olympians. Tim holds a doctorate in education and is a scholar on social and emotional learning. He's a filmmaker and author of a New York Times best-selling book, Fully Alive, Discovering What Matters Most. And I'm so excited that he's here today. Tim, let me introduce you to our group. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Emily, and thank you to all of you. Thank you for allowing me to join. I'm just putting up my slides. Hopefully you can see them. I want to thank Emily. I want to thank Matt for co-chairing this session, Dr. Keller. I want to thank Michelle, who will follow me and moderate. I want to thank all of you for welcoming me. JFNA does extraordinarily important work. And Emily, you've just alluded to some of it. Maybe the most important work is as a mom in your case, but also the leadership of so many different ways in which your local community is active in transforming the rights and gifts and opportunities for people with intellectual and developmental challenges. I'm listing my title here as a friend of Aaron Kaufman's because really that's how the reason I'm here. JFNA has many, many tentacles out into the world. Aaron's not, you can't see his face here on the screen, but he's been an extraordinarily powerful advocate. Was in my home just over a year ago for a political event. I know we're not partisan on a call like this, but I just want to thank Aaron for being such a strong advocate for people, self-advocate, but also an advocate on behalf of others. And this is the greatness of these kinds of convenings, that we can listen and learn from one another about not only how to find our own voices, our own agency, our own sense of possibility, but how to share that and see it in others. And this is why I consider myself, my primary title today, a friend of Aaron's. My title is The Inclusion Revolution. Is there such a thing as a new normal? So I want to open with just inviting us to recognize that in this moment of tragedy that so surrounds us, that there is a moment also of opportunity, as painful as it may be, to architect a new normal. And so the question we have to each ask ourselves is, what should the new normal be? What should be different? We don't have to go back to the way things were. And in fact, those of us in the disability communities and worlds around this country and around the world, we know that where we were is not where we want to be. So the question I invite each of you to answer in your own right, I'll do my best to answer it quickly myself. What is the new normal? And what would an inclusion revolution look like as a way of creating a new normal? So let's see if I can get this to work. Will we go down? There we go. So many, many years ago at a Special Olympics event, you can see here, this is a full stadium, one of our World Games in Yale, at the Yale Bowl. You can see on the Jumbotron there, Bill Clinton, who was president at the time, was in the stadium. And down on the field, you have about 5,000 or 6,000 athletes with intellectual and developmental differences and gifts. And they'd each been given cameras. In those days, we had actual cameras. Some of you may remember those days. But the president was way at the top of the stadium, so many of the athletes couldn't really get pictures of him, but they were trying. And one of the photographers, the professional photographers down in the field, saw a group of athletes trying to get a picture of the president, who was speaking from the very top of the stadium. And he noticed that all the athletes had their cameras up backwards. You know, the lens was pointing on their nose, and the photographer went over to say to them, you have to turn the camera around and then you push the button and you'll get a good picture. Well, the athlete turned to him and said, oh, thank you. He said, but if you look through the viewfinder backwards, it works like binoculars and you can see the president perfectly clearly. Now, I want to start with this story because I hope even in its brevity, you can see that the photographer looked over and he saw 8 or 10 people with a disability, and he assumed that they didn't know what they were doing. Not because he's a bad guy, but because, if I can use this language, his lens was off. It was blurry. He wasn't seeing clearly. And so often, the primary fundamental heart-based challenge we face is to change the way people see. It is to change laws. It is to change curbs. It is to change access. It is to change policies. It is to change employment and education. But maybe at their core, we are always trying to get people to change the way they see us, all of the diversity of the human family. I learned this lesson from my own mother. On the left of this picture is a picture of my mother when she was in her 20s with her sister, Rosemary. This is, goodness, maybe 80 years ago. What you don't see in this picture is that Rosemary had an intellectual challenge. But what you do see, I hope, is sisters. What my mother knew at the moment this picture was taken was that she loved her sister and enjoyed being with her. And the second thing she knew is that the culture around her didn't. That despite the fact that she could see in her sister a beautiful, a gifted, an important, a valuable human being, no one else, almost no one else could. There was no schools for Rosemary, no healthcare for Rosemary, no job for Rosemary. As my grandmother said to me later in life, there was nothing for Rosie. But in this relationship, we see the makings of the transformation I think we need even now. One person of love and commitment and affection who sees in the other person the same. In this picture, both people were change agents. Surely my mother was a powerful change agent. I'll say more about that in a minute. But so was Rosemary, because she insisted, she tried, she worked her whole life to join and to prove that the courage and determination and love and affection she had mattered too, just as much as all of her brothers and sisters. Now, my mom went on, as many of you know, to found the Special Olympics movement about 30 years after that photograph was taken. Here's what it looks like today. And I present this not to brag, only to invite you to recognize the role we're all playing in a small community. This looks like big numbers, as as we were saying, as Emily was saying, over 6 million athletes and partners in the upper left-hand corner every single year participate in a local Special Olympics event. And the only reason they do is because millions of volunteers walk out on a Saturday morning and plan all week long to give them the chance, because they've seen the gift. They've seen the need for equity. They've seen the hope of inclusion. They felt the transformational energy of welcoming everyone. And so they work tirelessly for nothing in healthcare. You see in the upper right-hand corner there, our work in healthcare. And you see in the blue swath across the middle there, the school leaders, young people, 58,000 people with and without intellectual differences in schools being trained as leaders. Over in the bottom right-hand corner, 100,000 plus schools that are implementing inclusive programming. These are the young people, the doctors, the nurses, the professionals, the coaches, the moms, the dads, the decent human beings who are seeing differently. But we've got a long way to go. This is a picture that has stayed with me since the spring. This is a picture of Ives Green. He's the first person to die of COVID in the state of Louisiana, a Special Olympics athlete, a group home resident. And when he died at the age of 58, his family said just one thing: Ives had a lot more living to do. Those words are with me now, and I invite you to take them in too. Our brothers and sisters with intellectual and developmental challenges have a lot more living to do. They do not deserve to be treated with inequalities, with disparities, with a closed door from the healthcare system, education, employment, sports, recreation, family and community life, places of worship, and the like. They remain, still today, too many times a forgotten population. So I find in Ives's life inspiration. I hope you do too. But here's the reality in the New York Times. The surges last spring, the dispiriting, heartbreaking, infuriating neglect that confronted so many people with intellectual and developmental challenges as group home after group home, small institutions, places where people were looking for help. And our folks were again at the back of the line, outrageously treated as though they didn't matter as much. My hope is in younger people. This is a group in the state of Rhode Island. This is one of those 108,000 schools where young people got together a few years ago and decided to commit themselves to making their school a place where inclusion was the standard. They rewrote their school's pledge. And if we were all together, I'd encourage us to read this out loud together, but we can't do that. But maybe I'm going to invite you from behind your muted microphones to read this with me. And when I say Ponagansett family, I'd like you to put in your own. In my case, it might be the Shriver family. In your case, it might be the JFNA family. But place in this expression, in these words, your own experience. But consider these words written by our young people who learned to see the gift, not the disability, see the gift. And they wrote this and rewrote their school's motto, their mission along these words. As a member, please read it with me from where you are. Don't worry, I can't hear you. As a member of the Ponagansett family, I pledge to look for the lonely, the isolated, the left out, the challenged, and the bullied. I pledge to overcome the fear of difference and replace it with inclusion. I choose to include. The Special Olympics movement asked the kids at Ponagansett, could we use this around the world? And so we've spread this message as far as we can, asking people to choose to include. Put it on your t-shirt, put it on your arm, make it your policy. Choose to include. When in doubt, inclusion is always the best option, always the better option. I dare say always the right option. It's not enough to wait though. Listen to what these young people told us. They pledged to go out and look for the lonely. If you're an HR officer, if you're a group home worker, if you're a mom or a dad, if you're a volunteer or a coach, if you're a doctor or a nurse, it's not enough to wait. It's not enough to say yes when the question comes. Choose to go out and look for the lonely and the left out and the challenged and the bullied. Pledge to change your lens, my lens, our lens together. I think it's worth noting that right now we're in a divided world. And I want to share, I'm going to stop this about halfway through because I think I'm mostly out of time, but I'm going to show this short video that reminds us that it's possible. It's possible for us to become a more united country. It's possible for us to build a new normal. It is possible, I dare say, to unite behind the power and urgency of equity and inclusion for all. Here's a short clip of a 24-hour show that brought together Americans from all walks of life, inviting us to unite. Take a look. And as I say, just for a few minute or two, and then we'll wrap up.
Merhaba. Ciao. Hello.
Hey, hi, how are you?
Nie wszystko super.
My name is Archbishop Thabo Makgoba, joining this call to unite from Cape Town in South Africa.
I am so privileged to be with you here in Montgomery, Alabama.
We're coming to you from Manila, Philippines.
I am joining the call to unite to bring the joy of story time to children around the world.
My call is to make sure that we unite people by feeding them.
I've been doing my best to spread positivity.
Develop the skills of empathy and compassion.
Take a stand for those who need help the most.
Slow down our own breath, our own being, our own body in this particular moment.
Hundreds of millions of families across the world find themselves at some of the lowest points that they've ever seen.
We're united in grief. We're united in horror.
And while we're all suffering in our own unique capacity,
we need not suffer alone.
In the face of our pain, we must not forfeit our dignity.
We are aware now as we have never been before.
This is the perfect opportunity for us to do what we're doing right now, to reach out, to bring people together.
I think of it as a massive reset for the world.
We certainly need a new normal.
The question really is, what type of normal do we want to get back to?
When we come together like this, it gives us the greatest opportunity to shift the way the world looks today and to really reimagine what the world will look like tomorrow.
People are capable of making huge, radical behavioral changes when they're motivated.
We don't have to wait until the pandemic is over to unite. You know, this dream could come true right now.
We have a simple principle as uniters. We believe that we are one. Mothers and fathers, all kinds of monks, musicians, dancers, and all the gifts that humanity has to offer.
We all breathe the same air. We all cherish our children's future.
There's no time for love like now.
This is the calling that we all are being urged to answer.
This is who we are.
Each of us at this moment needs to be a leader in our personal life, a leader in our communities, and a leader in the world.
May we all find our interconnectedness.
Our place in humanity.
We rise or fall together, and we are determined to rise.
The most powerful force in the world is the individual who has realized their power to do good. We're not just.
Whoops. So I'm going to stop there. I get carried away because I like that short video. I just want to close with inviting each of you, as you get into the discussion now, to think of the new normal. Can we unite? I think we can. Actually, I believe our country is desperate, starving to unite. Most of us want something very different than what we have now. No partisan message implied there, just something different. We want to be united as a country in pursuit of dignity. We see the possibility of a new kind of belonging in our schools, in our workplaces, in our families, in our faith-based institutions. We see the possibility of ending this grinding inequalities in our systems and replacing them with the pursuit of equity for all. And we demand no exceptions. No exceptions. Not for most, not for the majority, for all. This is the promise. JFNA is deeply in it, so are each of you. I'm proud to be with you in the pursuit of the idea that an inclusion revolution is now ours to wage peacefully, maybe even, I dare say, gently, but with a firm resolve to discover a new normal. Thank you very much. And I'll turn it over, I think now to Matt. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shriver. You are true inspiration for inclusion and the change we need right now. Thank you so much. My name is Matt Keller. Along with Emily, I co-chair JFNA's Disability Committee. As the past chair of the Board of Jewish Family and Community Services in Pittsburgh, I know firsthand the critical difference our human service agencies can play in the lives of people with disabilities. And as a pediatrician, I understand the tremendous toll this pandemic is having, particularly on people with disabilities. Today, I am delighted to share with you a short video highlighting the critical work of another agency in Pennsylvania that is rising to the occasion, JEVS Human Services in Philadelphia. Their mission is to enhance clients' employability and self-sufficiency through a broad range of education, training, health, and rehabilitation programs. First, let me tell you a little bit about Stephen Jones, who you will meet in the video in just a second. Stephen was recently honored with the JEVS Strictly Business Inspiration Award due to his perseverance in overcoming obstacles to success in the workplace. In 2019, Stephen completed an internship at Shore Medical Center, a hospital in Somers Point, New Jersey, as part of his high school to life transition plan after school. Upon graduation and after his internship, Stephen was determined to return to Shore, this time as a paid employee. Jevs worked closely with Stephen and the hiring manager at Shore Medical to help Stephen land his current position. Jevs continues to support Stephen's success on the job, including helping him adjust his work environment to conform to COVID safety requirements. We will hear more from the president and CEO of Jevs, Jay Spector, on our panel later today. Now let's learn a little bit more about Stephen and his accomplishments. I hope you enjoyed the video.
Stephen is always positive. He has an infectious personality. He's amazing.
This is Stephen Jones. I'm 22 years old. I just go to a hospital to do some appointment in New Jersey. I'm gonna put about linens, put about supplies, and scrubs, all that stuff on the different areas. Trying to help people, to take care of them, do the new supplies, everything on every single day.
I received his referral through DBRS for supported employment services, and he chose Jevs Hireability. Jevs Hireability provides supported employment services, which include job development, intensive job coaching, which is going with the individual until they learn their job. And we offer those services to any individual that has a diagnosed disability. I think that Stephen could work anywhere. And I think Stephen would probably do really well anywhere that he worked, and he would be an asset to any company. But Stephen wants to work at Shore. He loves Shore Medical Center and he wants to work there. And that's why it's a good fit. And he's just very social. Like he's super social, so he loves being around people. So this gives him the opportunity to be around lots of people.
It made people happy, laugh, the people that support them. Mr. Larry, Benita, Baylor, and Joe. They make me laugh all the time.
He just enjoys going to work. I think it comes from the employees there because they're great. And they all treat him with such respect and love. And the start of COVID, they were very accommodating and allowed him to stay home until his family was comfortable with him returning to work. And when we went back the first day, I was a little nervous wearing the mask. I wasn't sure if he would be able to be comfortable in the mask.
Are you ready for my mask already? You ready?
Once he found a mask that was comfortable, because he does have hearing aids, he's been really great.
He's very happy to be back.
Yeah, Miss him loved me. Miss him want me back to try to make some money because it's going to help me pay bills with my mom and dad, right, Mom?
Yeah, you're going to help pay bills?
Yeah.
I nominated Stephen because this year, it's been a hard year for a lot of people, and it's been a different year. And I think Stephen is a ray of sunshine, and I thought people needed that. He has such a good attitude, and he is always smiling, which is hard now with the mask. That's why I nominated Stephen for this award, because he just spreads joy.
What a fantastic video. Stephen is amazing, and just one example of how lives are transformed every single day by our Federation-supported agencies. Hello, everyone. My name is Michelle Hirsch from Cleveland, Ohio, and a member of the JFNA Disability Committee. Growing up with an uncle with intellectual disabilities who reminds me so much of Stephen, it's just amazing to see how far we've come and how proud I am to see so many different communities stepping up to create this inclusive and loving atmosphere for every Jew, no matter where they live or what they look like. Today, we're going to talk about all of that and so much more. I'm pleased to lead this incredible panel discussions of how federations and partner agencies are meeting the challenges to support individuals with disabilities during such an isolating time. Let's jump in. Our incredible panel for all of you today, these are the people leading the charge behind the scenes on the front lines, and we cannot be more grateful. Today we have with us Terry Bonoff, CEO of Jewish Family and Career Services in Atlanta, Jay Spector, the president and CEO from the organization we just saw, JVS Human Services in Philadelphia, Dory Kirshner from CEO of Matan, Carly Goodman, manager of community inclusion from the Federation CGA in Montreal, and John Gutierrez, the deputy director of Veteran Services for JVS in Southern California. I'm going to ask all of our panelists a series of questions, and then we'll leave 10 minutes at the end for our session for audience questions and participation. So please use the Q&A function for the questions, and we will do our best to get to as many as we can. So all of our panels, let's turn on our cameras and unmute ourselves. And let's just go around and tell a little bit about yourselves, your federation or your agency or your organization, and then very quickly who your clients are. And, obviously you were doing so much pre-COVID, but since this is the topic of the day, what did you do? How did you pivot? And how has that pivoting impacted your clients, both directly, indirectly, their families? Just real quick, let's do a round robin. Let's have Terry go first.
Well, thank you so much. And it has been inspiring to be together today. That video Dr. Shriver showed was amazing, as was our last presentation. So Jewish Family and Career Services is a multi-service agency. And one of the services we're most proud of is our services for people with intellectual and developmental disabilities. We operate 7 group homes. Each group home has 4 adults who live with us. And we also have a day program where 55 of our beloved clients come from 9 to 3. And during this COVID time, it has just been particularly heartbreaking because, as was stated, our clients are among the very most vulnerable. And so our day program, in fact, we had to hit pause on March 13th. So we'll share more about that and the effect of that, but that's broadly how we service this community.
Great. Jay.
Glad to be here today and to be with my colleagues. I also want to just make one statement about Special Olympics. I was a coach for several years and very proud of that. And it really brought me as the CEO very close to our consumers, which makes that job even that more meaningful. JEVS operates a variety of different programs similar to Atlanta, a broad range of workforce and disabilities work, aging work. We operate 35 group homes. We also support people in the community. There's about 50 people in the community who we provide wraparound supports so that they can be successful living in the community and working in the community. We also provide home care services to over 800 individuals in the community who are either disabled or aging. When COVID hit, we were in a mode of startup and shut down. So for our programs for people with disabilities, life went on. Some of them certainly lost or had their jobs furloughed, but those that are with us 24/7 and we're providing home care for, those are essential workers. So we had over 300 employees coming to work every day and in our group homes, and 800 home care workers. The challenge for agencies like ours is that we have to find a way to be successful in having people come to work every day, feel safe, make sure our clients and consumers are safe. And so it was a lot of dealing with isolation initially, and supporting people. And, we're now in this very awkward period where there's a surge starting. Things were doing well. People were going back to work. People were engaging in the community again. And now, we're hoping that, things will continue to go down that path, but we're also have our eyes on the challenges with a surge in COVID at this point.
Thank you, Jay. Moving on to Dory.
So thank you so much. I too, like what Terry said, I think I needed this today. It was the videos and hearing Tim Shriver talk just reminded me of, regardless of the pandemic and what we can and can't do, technology like this can provide really meaningful connection. And that's one of the things at Matan that we have focused on, is sort of trying to maintain the connection. They say connection over content. Matan works with communities all across North America, helping them to figure out, as a Jewish community, what they need, whether it's training, whether it's a needs assessment, whether it's certain curricular guides or resources. And our favorite thing is to work alongside federations that are really looking to improve what I would call the continuum of care from cradle to grave, so that every Jewish community really can maximize all of its members. And we are, JFNA keeps saying we're all in this together, and it's really inspiring. So the one thing that I would say about this time right now is that, like Jay was saying, I think it's a bit of a roller coaster, and that it is really hard, and it's okay to acknowledge that it is hard.
Great, thanks, Dory. Mm-hmm. And Carly, our neighbor up north.
Thank you
so much. What's going on in Canada? Welcome.
Thank you so much. Such a pleasure and really honored to be here. Thank you so much for welcoming a Canadian neighbor to participate today. I work at Federation CJA, which is the Jewish Federation of Montreal in Canada. As part of my role, I help to lead our inclusion initiative, which is really about ensuring that there are opportunities for people of all abilities to participate in all aspects of Montreal Jewish life in ways most meaningful to them. Helping to act as a convener and as a connector. Unlike some of my colleagues on this call, we are not a direct social service provider, but we act as key connectors and conveners between our social service agencies, as well as 11 agencies that we work in direct partnership with. We have seen, since our inclusion initiative started a couple of years ago, some really tremendous growth and change on the ground, and projects that ultimately support belonging, which is what this is all about. We know that inclusion is about a mindset and ensuring that there's a place and a space for everyone in the community, no matter what your level of ability and background. Since COVID-19 hit, it has been tremendously and profoundly challenging for so many families on the ground. And our team has worked so hard alongside all of our partner agencies to provide the support and services that are needed desperately at this time, from supported employment to reaching out to community members and letting them know that it's going to be okay and we got you. Here in Montreal, you'll see as you walk through the streets in windows the sign of a rainbow and the words "Ça va bien aller," which means in English, it's going to be okay. And that's really what the Jewish Federation has done for the past 7 months now, is letting community members know that we're here for you, we got you, and it's going to be okay.
Beautiful, thank you. And John.
Hi, everybody. I'm John Gutierrez from JVS SoCal. I retired from the Marine Corps in 2015. Ever since then, I've been in the veteran space. So we focus primarily on employment and helping veterans transition from service into gainful employment. You can imagine with working with veterans, we have a high population of disabled. So we see everything from post-traumatic stress all the way to multiple amputees. So there's a lot of work that we do there. I guess for us, our big pivot was being able to go virtual, and we did that rather quickly. We were pretty mobile before, so we were able to switch and got into Zoom, got into Teams pretty quickly. What we did notice was that there was a digital divide. So where we assumed that people have access to internet, computers, and smartphones, we realized that once you shut down Starbucks, once you shut down the libraries, that access goes away. So that's one of the things that we realized. So we not only do we do virtual, but we will do in-person coaching and assistance, just to be able to meet everybody's needs.
That's great. And it leads us right into our next question, John. You know, being able to pivot to get to that virtual world, it's seeing the world and, you know, adjusting and making sure that we can accommodate. Wondering if any of the other panelists can maybe share some stories or just examples of whether it's collaborating with other organizations that maybe you didn't work with before, or maybe working at now at a higher level. But, you know, what's new now that is different before to be able to accommodate these needs, right? I mean, we've had to roll up our sleeves and get creative.
I can jump in on that one. So I mentioned that our group homes are obviously still happening because our clients live with us, but we wanted to be able to reach out to those who are now back with their families. And listen, these people have been coming every day for years. We are their family. And so we knew they were just heartbroken. I happen to have the greatest staff who also is their family. And so they immediately started creating the virtual programming. And there's grants that, you know, once the Medicaid waiver stopped, and I kept all of our staff on because they are our treasure. And so we were like, okay, now what do we do? And they started creating virtual programming. And then this is the beautiful thing. So one of our clients, Seth, he was in a supportive work environment where he would go to work every day. He couldn't go anymore. And so we saw his mental health really start declining. He was starting to shut down. He wasn't okay anymore. And so our staff got this idea, how about Seth come and be part of creating the virtual programming? So we actually gave him a job to work with our staff to create this programming. So we now have 6 hours of virtual programming 5 days a week that are going into the homes of both those who are living with their families, but also into our own homes. It's challenging because, you know, it's a lot for our clients to stay focused and to stay engaged. And, you know, if you think about what they normally do on a day, they go on field trips, they run around, they, you know, there's a lot of different activity to make sure everybody's engaged. And so keeping people engaged in a TV takes a lot of skill and a certain skill set that many of our staff have, but it is a real challenge.
One of the things that we did to advance ourselves in this virtual world was certainly also discovering that there is an incredible digital divide amongst the people that we serve. And so we started to provide Chromebooks and Wi-Fi access points for people who did not have them. Our programs for people with intellectual disabilities, we, as an agency, made a decision a couple years ago to close down our day programs. The state was pushing all providers to close down over a period of time, and we decided to do it at one shot. And we've been providing community inclusion and participation for several years. So we already had our supports out in the communities with other organizations, because many of our consumers were able to become volunteers. And one of the biggest opportunities that we had with all of the issues around food insecurity right now, our consumers were working in food banks and sometimes inside, but mostly outside, delivering meals. And so that became an opportunity for those who were comfortable enough to be outside. And as we all know, it takes some time until people are comfortable, whether it's parents comfortable, whether it's the consumer comfortable, whether it's our staff being comfortable. But we worked all through that, and that is moving in a, in a very positive direction at this point.
I can add to that, just jumping on food insecurity and some of the ways that we've pivoted as an organization, so much so that we saw this at the beginning of the pandemic, going back in March. One of the first things that we did is initiated a friendly phone call initiative that reached out to thousands of seniors over the age of 60 who were living in the community. And as part of this initiative, what we did that was quite unique is set up a phone call initiative for young adults living with disabilities to pair them up with a virtual buddy. These phone call initiatives evolved and turned into real friendships. We saw hundreds of meals being delivered out to community members. And the story that I really wanted to share is that through one of these initiatives, through one of our local social enterprises, we saw young adults living with disabilities making meals for other families who were living with a disability and involving them in the process of giving back to the community. We have seen virtual programming across the board, from exercise classes to mindfulness classes to supporting the mind, body, and spirit of community members who for many, virtual programming has been a true silver lining of this entire pandemic, to be a part of the community and to stay engaged with others, just to share a couple of examples.
For us, I think it was kind of the same as Jay mentioned. Chromebooks have been coming in handy. They're pretty inexpensive, easy to use. So we've had a lot of luck with that. We just partnered with IBM in their Skills Build platform. So we can offer, where we used to offer things like Microsoft Office Suite and Excel classes in person, now we can offer them online. And it's expanding, and we can do project management. There's some IT classes that we can do. So it was something that was kind of a thought that the pandemic really expedited. Like, it pushed this in that direction, and we've been able to, in the last 6 months, we've gotten it done, and we're launching here in the next week or two.
So I just wanted to add that from our vantage point, one of the things that we quickly did was exactly what Carly was saying. Was we reached out to a lot of the people with whom we, have partnered across the country. And what we kept hearing was very similar to the digital divide, that educators in Jewish, educational programs, whether it was day schools or Hebrew schools or early childhood programs, et cetera, there was a digital divide in terms of how students were responding to that new normal of having to sort of take in everything online. For some kids, it works really well. For some people with disabilities, it was working very well. There were lots and lots of educators and directors who felt very, hamstrung, I would say, and stuck. So we created a new webinar series that we opened up to anyone who wanted to participate about how to try to engage the maximal amount of learners at any one time online, because it is a completely different skill set. I mean, Terry, you were saying the same kind of thing. You can be really good at in-person programming, but to do it online, it's totally different. And how do you engage lots of different types of learners? So that's what we focused on.
That's great. And, a lot of the creative ideas, the Chromebooks, the new programming, these things cost money, right? So I'm curious as to, are we finding grants? How can we help our audience find similar funds? Is it through the government and private donors? Let's talk dollars and cents here, because that's what is going to get all those Chromebooks in everyone's hands. So who wants to jump in?
So I'll jump in, not being shy. We were really fortunate in being able to pick up some specific grants. Most of the grants that we picked up, like the CARES Act money and related, that was all good for being able to pay overtime wages or enhanced wages, heroes pay, whatever you call it. And that took some of the pressure off. Most of our funders continued to pay us, sometimes creatively, because we couldn't earn the way we used to be able to earn. So we got funds based on the prior year's billings. And so what I found is at the state and local level, our funding partners have been very creative and supportive of keeping everything going. So we made a commitment to keep everything open, with the exception of one program that operates in the Philadelphia prisons. Once COVID cases opened there, they asked all the providers to leave. Those were the only 10 to 12, I believe, people that we had on our staff that we had to furlough, and hopefully that's going to reopen in December. But we've also undertaken doing some emergency fundraising because some of the things that we need to do are not really things that the government funding will pay for. So we've used some creativity in terms of our ability to raise money, and also at the same time support of funds that were set up locally, both by the city of Philadelphia and our United Way of Southeastern Pennsylvania and New Jersey. So you have to just be creative and pull out all the stops.
The funding has been a real challenge. At the beginning, we were able to take advantage of the retainer payments that were part of the Medicaid waiver, so that we could bill for our regular amounts, and that lasted for 90 days. I wish it would come back, I'll tell you that. And then we've been able, for our virtual services, to take advantage of the federal community access grants. But the mandatory reporting, where you have to actually document every 15 minutes that somebody's been engaged with you. And so we're having our staff to call the families, and for our own homes, it's not as hard, but to just make sure that there's some indication that somebody's paying attention. But with regard to the overall increase in payment to staff, we are having difficulty making ends meet. We got one CARES grant to take care of some hazard pay, but I'm hoping I'll learn from my colleagues now of some other creative ways, because this area of our budget is probably hit the hardest because of how much we were dependent on the actual providing of the service for the reimbursement.
John, did you want to chime in? Any creative funding for vets?
Sure. I think for us, it's been there's a couple of different things that we did. We did have a COVID campaign, just because, as Jay mentioned again, there's some things that are typical funding. There were gaps in what we were doing, so we needed stuff that we traditionally didn't pay for. We were doing a lot of utilities, a lot of rental assistance, and that was most of what we do is very focused on employment. But we need to make sure people had a place to live and had the lights on so that we can help with the employment part. A nice thing that we did have was a lot of the funders didn't wait for us to come to them. They actually came to us and said, hey, we understand this is a totally different year. So a lot of the things that we expected you to spend money on, we're going to be flexible, and we're going to make it so that you can have whatever you need to do to get you through this time, we're going to support it. And we've actually had some that came back and said, we know we gave you this amount, we're going to give you some more just to help you get through it. So it's really working with your funders and having them, just letting them know what's going on and keeping good communication with them so that they understand that there's been a change. Like we know right now that we're just starting to see some of the impact of the pandemic, but we know that there's going to be more as we keep going down the line. There's people that are not looking for work right now that will be here shortly. So.
Great. And on the lines of looking for work, we saw Stephen, right, was sent home in the beginning, as all of us were, working from home or not working at all. What are you seeing, John and Jay, as far as trends on, are people going back to work slowly with their masks on? You know, as we all trickle back into the office, is the disability community also getting back to their jobs, or is it still kind of stay at home? What's the trends that you're seeing?
So what we're seeing is a mixed bag there. You know, initially, everybody basically that was in a non-essential position, and even some that were, whose parents didn't want them to be working in that environment. So what we saw was about 50 of our clients were furloughed or laid off. Many of those have since now returned to work. And it's created new opportunities, as you saw with Stephen. He has, there are greater needs now for the kind of work that Stephen was doing at the hospital. And what we've seen is that it's given us an opportunity to retrain some of our clients. We had a particular consumer who was doing environmental maintenance work. And, he was struggling at work at what he was doing. And then when we brought him back, we used the time while he was not working to virtually work with him, building his skills back up. And so when he went back to work, he was much more polished, much more self-confident, and had to learn some new skills because you have to clean a different way under COVID. And so now he's a much more valuable asset to his employer.
That's great.
Yeah, we're seeing kind of the similar thing. It's kind of like a mix, half and half. So some folks are still coming out and still trying to find work. And we've had some opportunities because we're doing things like virtual work that didn't exist before. So now we have like contact tracers. There was just LA County just hired 200 contact tracers, all working from home. So we're seeing jobs like that. So it's a lot of it is industry specific. We're still seeing the devastation on the retail side. A lot of restaurants are still not doing what they were doing before. But there are some opportunities that are coming up that we didn't expect in the past. The big thing for us is working with the businesses to educate them on, you can have a great employee with just a simple accommodation. And if you're a smaller business and you need assistance, we can work with the State Department of Rehabilitation. And a lot of times they'll fund the accommodation. So there's resources out there that can help you as a business and help you as a job seeker. So that's really the big thing that we've been doing lately.
That's great. So let's shift, right? So to more emotional, right? So much of the disability community is about love, right? And being able to provide that safe place where people feel included and feel like they are a human being, right? And that level of isolation has to be so incredibly hard. So I'm gonna, to Carly, to Dory, to everyone, what can we do? What are you doing to make not only the individual feel like there are people out there, right? That those smiley faces and the warm hugs that we can't give, and the families, right? These parents that have had an outlet, had an organization, had a place for their children to feel loved outside of the home, now in the home. What are we doing from here within your organizations?
So I can start off. We all know and have all experienced in our own ways that you can be 2 feet apart from an individual and a human, and yet a world away from someone else. And we've seen not only mental health and social isolation impact everyone, but in particular families who have a child living with a disability at home and families that are supporting a loved one. What we have done to support families in the past few months, the list is extensive, ranging from curating activity kits for children at home to provide a little bit of parent respite and support, to providing meals so that families wouldn't have to worry about what was going to be served at the dinner table. We, like I mentioned, our community has done a tremendous job of pivoting so many necessary support services virtually, from whether it's virtual programming or providing much needed webinars for parents to gain tools in their toolbox to support them where they are, to providing programming to foster cooking skills or budgeting for young adults. There really is so much that has been done not only by our organization, but by many others and in direct partnership with, to give the message that you are not alone and that we are here to help you as a community, simply because this is what we do in times like these. I will say that mental health and social isolation is something that is on all of our minds, especially with the oncoming winter months. And here in Montreal, we are actually in a partial lockdown, which means that the rules stipulate you are only allowed to be with people in your own household. And we know that to build a framework of resiliency for youth and young adults and older adults who are at such higher risk right now, we really need to band together as a community. And the phrase, a high tide raises all the boats, couldn't be more true at this time. And it's going to take organizations across the community, from grassroots to mom and pop organizations to major organizations, to band together so that together we can bring awareness and also provide support that directly tackles mental health and social isolation.
So the one thing that I would add to what Carly is saying, because it's beautiful, and hopefully other federations will contact you to learn from Montreal's example. Sounds incredible. But one of the things that I wanted to just state is that we were initially very afraid that because of these basic needs that are really, really important, employment and therefore, financial stability and, safety and mental health and all those things, they're all extremely important. We worried as an organization, would this then, the members of the disabled community in one way, shape or form be somehow off the radar during this time? Because there were so many, and there still are so many basic needs that need addressing. And I think one of the things, this is, just sort of like a message of thank you. I have been blown away in my own community. I live outside New York City in northern New Jersey, and I used to work at the UJ Federation of New York. Every federation has really tried and will continue to really try to figure out how all of our members can get best supported. And I'm really in awe of, I said this to you guys when we all met, to prepare for this talk, for this, session. You're doing such frontline meaningful work and really holding the Jewish community together. And exactly what you said, Carly, saying, we're here for you, we've got this. And like I said before, it's not easy and it's not over. I think this is going to be a very long ride, but one of the things that is inspiring to me is that I have found this to be an incredibly collaborative time. And we are working and talking with like organizations in a way that I really think the pandemic actually catalyzed. We were having conversations, but it was a slower dance. And I think it really, really has enabled us to get down to what really matters, as and as together as we can. So
thank you. Terry, what about you with the group home world? My uncle lived in a group home, so very familiar with it. And it truly is the other people living with them, it becomes their families. So how has isolation been working out? Is everyone getting along? What's the dynamics in the group homes?
The clients are really doing well. The thing that is the hardest that I see is the relationship with their families. And it's really heartbreaking. Parents make a choice that they want to know that when they're gone, that their loved one is going to have independence and going to be okay. So they make this kind of heart-wrenching choice that they're going to say, okay, you're going to go live in this home. And then a pandemic hits and their access is gone. They could not come in and see their loved ones for weeks on end. It took months before we were able to do driveway visits. We're so lucky. We've only had 3 COVID outbreaks, and each time we were able to just shut it down. But at that point, then, the family members had a choice. Did they want to go and get their loved one and take them home until all clear, the coast was clear? But just think about all of the what they have to go through. Both the clients who are used to a weekly visit. And, I remember being in some of the homes and they would tell me when their mom was going to come or when their dad was going to sit and join them for dinner. And those were the highlights. As much as they love their roommates, that connection to their families, everything. So I think as I've watched this, that's been the hardest part, is the pain on behalf of the parents, as well as those who are separated and living in the homes. And I do have to shout out to my own federation, which I didn't mention. They've done a fantastic job raising COVID funds as well. And that's really made a big difference.
That's great, Terry. Yep. My uncle, after work, Starbucks every day at 4 o'clock. So I feel that. So we have some amazing questions from the gallery here. We're going to kind of sort through a lot of these. So I guess one question here is, how do we, from a virtual perspective, the digital divide, right? Like, some people may not know how to, I think it was maybe Jay or John talked about, getting them the internet access, being able to get them up and running. And then there's also a question, how do you let people know that these programs even exist? How do we get the word out there? And how do we make sure that, we're meeting people where they are, but they also even just know that this is available? Jay, you want to jump in on that one?
Sure. I think part of it has to do, again, with the level of independence and functioning of our particular consumers. We have some who live in, as I said earlier, independently in the community that we help support with wraparound supports. we're able to communicate with them and be able to give them instruction. It's easy to give a computer away. The real question is, how do you engage the person now on how to use it and use it effectively, whether it's to do their job search or whether it's just to use it for social networking. And so our staff has been really busy just providing the support to the clients that are under our care. In our group homes, the clients are not as high functioning as some of our programs. And so there it depends on their level of functioning and whether or not they have the capacity to use the computers. I would say probably half are and half aren't. Again, it's getting them programmed to use the computer now to develop social relationships. We have some people who might be, communicating from one group home to another group home by using the technology we're using right now. And so that's been a way. I did a Zoom. I zoomed in on one of our group homes programs one day and just popped into their Zoom room as a way of engaging with them. So there are ways that we can communicate clearly. I think one of the things and lessons learned is that this technology and enhancing it in a virtual world will be part of our everyday lives forever. That will not change. There are great things that we've picked up from the technology that will be part of it, because as we come back even into work, I have some programs that are supposed to be starting up. We've been working with our clients virtually in many of our programs, and now they're going to come back beginning next month, but they're going to only come back in a limited fashion. So our staff may only come back like 2 days a week. Our clients, maybe it's 1 day a week. So we're going to have to learn how to, get beyond that digital divide. It is part of our life now. It is the new normal.
I agree. And to just sort of jump on what Jay was saying, I think, our digital world is here to stay, and we can't move backwards. We can only move forwards. Part of the work that our team has been supporting in the past few months is making sure that our virtual spaces are accessible to as many community members as possible. And I really, give a shout out to JFNA that has provided closed captioning for, I believe, all of the programs that have taken place in the past 2 days. And this is something that we have started to do through our events, which is new and a new frontier for how we do our programs and how we do our events. In addition, here in Montreal, where French is our first language, we are providing live French translation services through Zoom, so that, again, we promote choice for how you need to or how you want to experience a webinar or a program. I think we really are seeing innovation on the ground in a way that we never have. I never would have believed it if you had told me 8 months ago that we would have an initiative teaching adults with sometimes profound disabilities how to jump on a Zoom call, to participate in a categories game, or to gain leadership skills through another program. And I think this is not only what we are seeing, but really pushing the boundaries for what can be moving forward. And I just wanted to add one more thing, that in terms of funding on our end, so much of these innovative initiatives, whether it's activity kits like I alluded to before, or the tablets or the backpacks or the thousands of PPE items, are thanks to many of our generous donors, and with funds from our Community Resilience and Recovery campaign that we started a couple months ago. So just to give maybe some tidbits for how other organizations can pivot to promote choice in what we do for all community members to benefit from.
I think for us,
sorry, John.
No. I think for us, social media has been tremendous, because we used to do about 100 events a year, and as you know, most of those are gone. A lot of them are virtual, but it's still not the same. So social media has been big. There's a lot of people that don't have cell phones, but somehow can find a way to get on Facebook. So that's worked. Everything that we do, we post on LinkedIn. I mean, that's been a big part of how we've managed to get information out to people. Another thing is working with our partners. And a lot of it is through social media that we still connect with our partners, since we don't see them face to face anymore. And our email inboxes are crazy right now. So social media tends to be quick and easy, and you can see it, it looks pretty. So you can get the information out. We had a program that we were given, and we had about 30 days to do it. It was $90,000 to assist, to give out to people, to assist them in whatever they need, whatever bills they have to pay. And having money is not usually a problem. Well, when you have 30 days to spend 90,000 and you have no one to give it to, it starts to be a problem. So you can imagine that we did everything possible to get the information out and push it to everybody. And it really took a lot of help from a lot of organizations and a lot of people to get it done.
Dora, did you want to chime in?
No, it's okay. I was going to say, I want to make sure, because I think we're short on time, and I didn't know if there were any other questions, to get to. So it's okay. Okay.
Well, I want to finish. This will be the last question because we are running out of time, but I think this is a great way to kind of end, right? So that in brighter days, when this is, in our past, and we can all give hugs and we can all, move forward. The question on the table is, how do we influence Jewish organizations in good times and in bad to walk the walk and include individuals with disabilities with decision-making, right? Having a seat at the table and not only providing services, but truly being inclusive and bringing that into the fold at the leadership table. So I would love your thoughts on just kind of ending on a positive note here. What's the charge, right? COVID or no COVID? What can we do as Jewish organizations to take the disability community and truly be inclusive at every level of our organizations? Who wants to start? No pressure. It's a big question.
Well, I'll just say that I couldn't agree with you more. I think one of the things that, I've said this in public before, so it may not be new for certain people, but kids who are growing up today, because of the way that education is and the way that diversity is pretty, clear, younger people, my kids, they don't understand that there would be any bias or discrimination or not, a lack of inclusion, because that's how everything in their lives has been so far. And so I always say it's all the adults that we have to convince that, that everyone is needed and every voice is needed. And we're not a Jewish community. We're not complete. We're not whole until all the voices are at the table. And so I think that one of the things I've been told by, people outside the Jewish community is that we do take that very seriously. We do, as a community, we do take the responsibility of, everybody feels, or they should, and this is like our job is to make everyone feel responsible for being an inclusive member. And that's gonna be different. And there's lots of awareness still needed and lots of skill building and education. But I do think, at least from what we see, there are unbelievable things happening, and people are visibly employed and in schools and in, having b'nai mitzvah. So thank God the shift has been, towards this is 1/5 of the population, 20%, and we're all in it together. And we have to figure it out. We have to be part of the solution, not the problem.
So I'm sorry. I was just going to jump on what Dory said about being part of the solution, and so I'm going to make a personal pledge. Right now there's a lot of conversation about diversity and inclusion and looking at how diverse is your, leadership team, how diverse is your staff. And so I've said with great pride, we've got 20% of this, but they don't say to me how, inclusive is your executive leadership team, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to start including that as part of the conversation. And I was, really, as I mentioned, I was really taken by the video of the young man who went back to work, because we have one of our staff members, a person with disability, and she hasn't been back in the office because we were worried about her health. But you know what? She gets to make that choice and she wants to come back. And so I think that we can be a voice for making sure everybody's included, but we also have to lead by example and ask ourselves what more we can do in whatever role we play.
I would just add one more thing to echo, and that was beautiful, Terry, and I agree with you entirely, Dory. The mantra that guides all of the work that we do in our team and with our partner organizations being nothing about us without us, and that you do not do for others, but in direct partnership with. And whether it's awareness initiatives that we know are sometimes a precursor to change and tangible tactless action on the ground, to a committee or initiatives involving your community members from the get-go in what you do to ensure that it's a partnership from the get-go. I just wanted to add that.
And if I can add one final point, I've been around long enough to remember a period when you could come to a GA and you would not know anything about some of the work that agencies do in our communities, especially around disabilities. I have to say, we've come a long way. We've come from, advocating every year to actually, having somebody like Erin in the office of JFNA representing the needs of people with disabilities. So there's progress being made. We have a voice and we're learning to use it more. And it's going to be really important going forward that it gets raised further. And I think we've got to, there's enough effort now. I think, I really have seen how agencies have come together, not thinking about their own agencies, but really just thinking about the people we serve and putting them first.
Amen.
Amen. Well, before I give it back to Emily, I just want to personally say thank you. And you are all heroes, and you are all giving and spreading so much love, and you're on the front lines, and there are so many people whose lives are truly changing because of each and every one of you. So on behalf of all of them, on behalf of all of us, thank you, thank you. I know Emily's going to thank you too, but I can't as a moderator just like drop the mic and bounce. So thank you, thank you. And now we'll turn it over to Emily to close us out.
Can y'all see me?
Mm-hmm.
Good. Hi, that was such an incredible session, so inspirational. I just want to say that so many of my friends have heard me say a number of times, it takes a village to raise my son who's 18 with autism. And my community here in South Palm Beach has been so supportive of me and my family, especially during COVID. But listening to what everyone has said today has made me once again realize just how incredible our international village is. And it gives me a lot of pride. I, for one, am very proud to be part of this amazing village, and I'm hoping that we'll get even stronger despite COVID, because with everybody here at the helm, we're really going to go places. And I can't thank you enough as a parent of someone with a disability. So I want to say thank you to everybody for coming today. A special thanks to Michelle, Tim, Terry, John, Carly, Jay, and Dory for sharing your wonderful insights and wisdom. And I especially want to thank Darcy Hirsch and Aaron Kaufman. I know everyone's heard Aaron's name quite a few times. The two of them are so incredible to work with, amazing professional staff partners, and they really worked hard putting this wonderful session together. And I'm so proud that they're a part of what this Federation movement does for people with disabilities and of families like my own. So if you really enjoyed this session, I have terrific news. You're going to love our Jewish Disability Advocacy Month, and it's a month-long virtual educational and community building experience that's going to be in February of 2021. If you don't know, we used to have for 10 years a Jewish Disability Advocacy Day in DC on the Hill. But now, of course, because of COVID, we're going to have a whole month in the month of February. And actually that's a silver lining because we're going to have more opportunities for people to participate and really grow and be motivated. We're going to have engaging webinars, seminars, interactive discussion, and of course, a bunch of local programming. And in the end, we're going to culminate with a virtual Capitol Hill visit. So we're going to be able to actually do advocacy on behalf of the disability community. This will also correspond to the National Jewish Disability Awareness, Acceptance, and Inclusion Month, which you might have heard it. People call it JDIME. So if you hear that, it's all going to happen together. And we're very excited to plan it. And we hope each of you will be a part of it. And I'm looking forward to seeing you virtually in the little box at an upcoming Zoom. So stay tuned for details of this in the coming months. I want you to have a great day. And I hope you were as inspired as I was. Nice seeing you, everybody.